Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to get a quick and accurate pictures of your students' speaking ability and how AI can improve the progress. I am Chen, your moderator of today's event, and this event is co-organized by Ming University and also Clarity. And today, you will know about how the CEFR descriptor from Laura, and let me make it very quickly, and Martin to tell you more about AI, okay? So whether you are joining us in person at the conference hall today on a rainy day or tuning through Zoom, welcome everyone. So without further ado, let's get started. To begin, it's my pleasure to invite our opening speakers, Dr. Ashley Chen, Deputy Director of the English Learning Center at Ming University, who has a keen interest in how AI and technology can enrich language learning. Please join us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ashley Chen, the Deputy Chair of English Learning Center of Ming Chuan University. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here with you for this meaningful event. As educators, our greatest responsibility is to provide quality teaching. And it includes ensuring that our assessments are valid, reliable, and truly reflective of our students' abilities. Among all skills, assessing students' speaking ability is considered the most challenging task because evaluators must make judgments within just a few seconds. Today, with the rapid advancement of technology, we have an incredible opportunity to rethink how we assess speaking abilities. AI-powered tools like Clarity Speaking Test are not here to replace us, hopefully, but to empower us because we are going to witness how they can provide consistent and efficient evaluation that supports teachers and students in new ways. I'm especially honored that Ming Chuan University is part of this important conversation for the about the future of language education. I believe today's workshop will spark many wonderful, meaningful insights here. Let's look forward to upcoming presentations. Okay, thank you all for your participation today. Okay.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, let me come back to it. Okay, so our first section will help us to understand the foundation of today's test. Laura, she is a specialist in assessment, and she is one of the developers of the dynamic English test. And okay, so without further ado, Laura, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I know it's afternoon there, but it's morning here in Germany. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. I believe you can see it now. Can you thumbs up there?
Yes, yeah, all good.
Very good. Okay, it's wonderful to be here with you all. I am here to talk to you about the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, and how it can be used to help us design assessment and prepare for assessment, and also then assess students' production, especially oral production. And the first question I kind of want to think about is, how do we measure language proficiency? What goes into it? As Dr. Ashley just said, it is a very complex endeavor. It is a challenge for many teachers because there's so many factors involved. You know, we're looking at grammatical accuracy, we're looking at vocabulary range, we're looking at vocabulary control, we're looking at pronunciation, intonation. Then beyond that, we go into fluency, and then the tricky parts, not just the vocab and the grammar and the pronunciation, the things we may notice immediately. What about the communication or strategies that the learners use? Comprehension, do they understand what's being said to them so they're responding correctly? And then there's the functional abilities, like how they actually use the language. and more. All these things I've written down there. There's errors, there's collocations, there's range, slang, all of these things go into it. And it is a very, very tricky job. It's very hard for teachers to do all this. Not beyond our skill, we can, but it is something that can be challenging. But the CEFR is a great tool to help us with this. So what is the CEFR? So the CEFR, or Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, is something that was created over many, many years, over a decade, by hundreds of language experts from around the world. People from universities, specialists from all over the world, it got involved in this project. And it wasn't to produce a product, but to produce a framework that is free and available for all of us, from teachers, I'm a teacher myself, to those producing curriculum, to language material experts, test experts. We can use this framework to ensure that we are speaking the same language when we talk about language assessment or language learning. I am a huge fan. I could talk about this topic for a whole day, but Hughie mentioned quick, so I'll try and be brief. So the CEFR has broken down language learning into 3 bands and 6 levels. And you have the A levels, the basic user. And you have the intermediate user. These users can function. They'll, of course, make mistakes. They're not perfect. They're still on their learning journey. But they can do, they can do basic things right up to functioning on a day-to-day basis. Then we come into the proficient level, to the C level, where people really can function very smoothly and effortlessly in the language. And the beauty, I feel, of the CEFR is that it puts language into these can-do statements. Instead of being something abstract that we learn, learning rules and learning vocab lists, the CEFR tells us that language learning and language use is actually all about action. It's about the things we do, not the things we know in our head. And I think that has been a huge turning point for everybody, teachers and material designers, over the last 20 years since it's been released, to remind us that it is not the passive knowledge of language as an abstract tool. However, it is the use of language as something concrete in reading, writing, listening, speaking, and mediation. So, yes, the beauty of the CEFR is it uses clear action-oriented language, the can-do statements. What can a learner do? Not what do they know, but what they can do at each level. Then it progresses logically from simple to complex across 6 levels. It covers all modes of communication, reception and production. So what we're understanding, what we're hearing, etc., and what we're producing in speaking and writing, but also interaction, so that how we interact with our peers, and also mediation. And it focuses on communicative outcomes rather than grammar knowledge. So I think that's a huge bonus. I am from Ireland, and I grew up with English, of course, but in Ireland we also have our own language, Irish, and I didn't come from an Irish-speaking area, and it was taught as a very abstract. We never spoke it. And after 8 years of learning, I can't speak it, whereas I lived in Spain for 2 years. I had to survive, and my Spanish is it's not good, but it's very functional. So I think I see the benefit that it tells us it's not about perfection, it's about achieving things. So as I said, huge fan here. Okay, so let's look at a descriptor, because this is what we as teachers need to help us plan or design our tasks or test our students. This one looks at overall oral production. So I'm going to show you a few more in a minute, but this is a very general one that explains what a user, a language learner or a speaker can do overall. So it's kind of general. So we start at the bottom actually, because the CEFR always starts at the bottom and works up. So we can see that the A's, you know, it says A1 can produce simple, mainly isolated phrases about people and places. So we have here simple. You can guess that they have words and a few, you know, sentences, but are not producing language as such in a fluent form. A2, then we move up a bit and we can see simple description or presentation of people, living or working conditions, daily routines, likes, dislikes, etc. But again, short series, simple phrases. So we see here the A level is very much about simple description, daily routines, likes and dislikes, things that are very close to me. I can't talk about abstract, I can't talk about politics or anything like that, but I can talk about my life and what I need in very simple terms. The B then level moves up. As I said, the intermediate is really using language to various extents on a day-to-day basis. And you see here, B1 reasonably fluently sustain a straightforward description on a variety of subjects within his or her field of interest. So still it's close to me, things of my needs, things of my life, linear. B2, it goes up, clear, more detailed, wide range of subjects. They're beginning to be, they can expand and support their ideas. And B2, the higher level one there is systematically developed description. So we want this developed idea. You know, they can highlight significant points and bring in supporting detail. So I mean, this is a great level. Over here, this would be the goal at the end of secondary school. We would try to get the students in Germany that are learning English, try to get them to a good B2 level. At that point, they can really use the language for most needs. Then C1, C2, we see here, you know, clear detailed descriptions, complex, the complexity comes here, integrating sub-themes, developing points and having conclusions. There's a smoothness here, there's a flow at C1. And then C2, yeah, clear, smoothly flowing, well-structured discourse. Yeah, so you get the idea. You can start seeing the words here we can relate, like the A level, simple, daily routines. The B, they're systematically, they're thought out, they're planned, they're developed, maybe a wider range. They can expand ideas with examples, maybe anecdotes. And then at the higher level, you have this smooth flowing, clear, effective logical structure. So that is just one of these very general descriptors of competence. We're going to look at a little bit now. I'm going to actually give you something to do. And we're going to look at some more competences. I have taken 4 descriptors here at random from 4 competences. Vocabulary range, grammatical accuracy, spoken fluency, and phonological control. And I'd like you just to take a minute to read the descriptors and put them in order. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4 or 4, 3, 2, 1? And if you figure it out, you can type your answers in the chat box. I believe I can see that there. So the task is look at the descriptors and decide which one is vocabulary control, which one is grammatical accuracy, which is spoken fluency, and which is phonological control. I'll give you a minute. Okay, I don't know if anyone wants to be brave enough to type in there the order of the number order they have when they match the descriptors to the competences. I'm going to give you the answer now. It isn't too tricky. But you can see here the descriptors give us the key words there. So I'm going to show you the answer. So you can see that number 1 was here, this one here, vocabulary range, can control a narrow repertoire dealing with concrete everyday needs. So the key word here is the repertoire, and it's A2 because it's narrow and it's concrete everyday needs, not abstract, very concrete. Grammatical accuracy, of course, was the last one. Maintains, and it's a C1, maintains a high degree of grammatical accuracy. Errors are rare and difficult to spot. That is a key factor here with grammatical accuracy at C level. Errors exist. I've been nearly 20 years in Germany. I make many mistakes in German. However, people can work around them. They're slips maybe more than real errors. They're rare and difficult to spot. The spoken fluency we can see is the first one. C2 I used here, can express themselves at length with a natural, effortless, unhesitating flow. And the last one, phonological control, is talking about intonation, which is also very important. Not just pronunciation, but intonation. Can use appropriate intonation, place stress correctly, and articulate individual sounds. The accent tends to be influenced by other languages. That's clear. We probably keep our accents, but it has no or little or no effect on intelligibility. Okay, I have one more for you to do, one more little test. Here we're zoning in on grammatical accuracy, which we saw there a minute. So which one is which? I put them in the wrong order, but you see I only looked at 4, A2, B1, B2, and C1. So try and test yourself and see, can you guess which descriptor is A2, which descriptor is B1, which is B2, and which is C1. So order the descriptors, A2 at the bottom to C1 at the top. Okay, I hope, yeah. Okay, I was wondering why the chat box, I wasn't seeing it, yeah. Okay, so like this is only a real short and quick introduction to the idea, but I'm going to show you the answers now. But already you're beginning to see very clearly the descriptor really clearly lays out what is working at each level. So here is the answer. It was from the bottom 2, 1, 3, 4. So you can see the A2, simple structures, basic mistakes, systematically, nevertheless, it's usually clear. B1, reasonable accuracy, good control generally, etc. B2, relatively high degree of grammatical control, does not make mistakes. And C1, which I gave you already, high degree of grammatical accuracy. Very good. So you can see even this one descriptor, and we have so many in the CEFR, tells me a lot. And this, to share the descriptors like this with your students, that would also make the learning more transparent for them. If a student really looked at the grammatical accuracy descriptors and really asked themselves, well, where am I? And how do I get to a B1? How do I get to a B2? You can see that the descriptors, just this one alone, is already giving them some advice and some hints. Okay, so, and there's many descriptors. Here I've just taken some examples. We have for example, production here. There's also reception, interaction, but here's just production. And you can see this one talks about the tasks people can engage in. Overall, okay, monologue describing experiences. So there's a whole band of descriptors explaining with detail, how a learner can give a monologue, give a little talk about something, about their experience and what at each level, what they should be able to do, giving information, putting a case, arguing something, presenting their arguments, public announcements, addressing audiences. So there are different descriptors for all the different production style. And then on the other side, we are looking here at then how well they achieve these. So this is the competences, their vocab, the grammar, vocabulary control, etc. So CEFR offers us these and many more, that when we break them down, we can use them individually to plan our lessons or plan some assessments to help develop our students' skills. So we're going to go to an example now. But first, I'm going to show you how the CEFR was used to design assessment tasks. So this is one example from the dynamic speaking test. And it's question 4. And, well, you can guess, well, we'll have a look here. So the task, we're designing the task using the CEFR. The task is very short, you think. It's 2 sentences here, or 3, but it's quite complex. So let's have a look. Your friend wants to share a flat with you, but you don't think this is a good idea. Tell your friend why, giving reasons, suggest a different solution. Now, there's many different steps here. And here are some of the ideas we used to create this task. It looks like a simple task, but look at just some of the descriptors we used when we were creating it. The first one was this, describing an experience. So describing a personal situation, giving background to a decision. So here, you don't think it's a good idea. So you've got to give background information. Maybe you're going to say, oh, because I lived with someone before, it was a disaster. I really like to live alone, whatever. Yeah. So sustained monologue was used to inspire this task. Then spoken interaction, putting forward a case. Here you justify viewpoints, talking about plans and decisions. So again, here we're bringing in why. Give reasons, justify your reasons. Then spoken interaction also helped us design this task. Goal-oriented cooperation, although in this case it's a monologue, of course, we are imagining a situation where you're talking to a partner or there will be a response from the partner. So here you have negotiating, proposing solutions, engaging in a collaborative decision-making. So this might affect more the register. You're telling someone bad news. So you've got to use language that has some tact to it, that says, you know, I'm really sorry, I'd love to live with you normally, but yeah, so you have to show this proposing a solution, this sort of tact and using, you know, respectful kind of soft language to break the bad news. And then we have coherence and cohesion, where, you know, they use linkers to put forward their argument and their reasons. You know, they say, I can't live with you because, or normally I would, but, etc. Yeah. And finally, then the sociolinguistic appropriateness. This is the delicate situation that I referred to already. You know, you're turning someone down. They want to live with you. You're saying no. You can't just say no, off you go. You have to be delicate, agreeing, suggesting, softening messages. So this shows you how we used, in a very quick way now, how we use the CEFR to design the tasks. You see elements of all these descriptors, and these are only the overview. Of course, we had the 6 levels for each one. So I think this task really is a B-level task. I mean, you could attempt it, of course, at any level, but B1s should really be 1s, B2s should really succeed well with this task. So let's have an example. So hopefully this works now. We're going to listen. I've put the text there for what they said. To one candidate. I have 2, so hopefully we have time. I'm hoping Puyi gives me a nod to say we're okay. So we're going to listen to a speaker. This is what they say. And you've got to think now very generally, where would you put them? And think for yourself why. What level, just hearing them the first time, would you give them? So I hope I'm going to try audio.
I don't think this is a good idea because I'm not a person people who's like cleaning, and I would more like to live with my mom, and I can suggest you to buy another department or something, and to live on your own is more helpful to us, because we're also having something our personal things or or work or something, and we also have in a different university, so this is why we can share a flat.
Okay, so this is a very tricky one. You see here kind of the text as produced by the system, you know. It's a very mixed level. Yeah, so it's a tricky one, okay? But if we look at what we heard, look at the text there, you can see that this person has good comprehension, definitely, and their fluency is quite good, but accuracy and vocab brings them down, definitely. And they were struggling to be coherent, really, in their argument. So what are they really saying? Yeah, I'm not a person who likes cleaning, and I would prefer, more like to live with my mom. Okay, so they're giving the reason. It's not a good idea. They didn't really give a that's they're explaining why. So the suggestion is now some vocab errors here, but to buy another apartment, I suppose, something like that. You live on your own, it's more helpful. So they're kind of going in here to suggesting, but it's not that clear. There again, then we have different universities, so why we can't, I think the pronunciation wasn't so clear, we can't share a flat. So that is an example here, and you can see, are they A2? Is it B1? I believe this student probably has much higher comprehension. However, in this task, their production was maybe, B1-ish, maybe B2 low, can reasonably fluently sustain a straightforward description on one of a variety of subjects. Yeah. I mean, I think it's around the B1 level, reasonably fluently, linear sequence of points, okay. And here grammatical accuracy, reasonable accuracy, it's reasonably accurate or repertoire. So it's somewhere around the B1, maybe even a little bit lower, yeah? But this is just two descriptors. Of course, we have to take in task management, fluency, etc. But you can see how the CEFR helps us, because he definitely wasn't clear. Look at the B2 here. He definitely wasn't clear, systematically developed description. Appropriate highlighting. He meandered, he wandered around, he wasn't sure what he was saying, he was looking for words. So it's definitely not B2. A2 says give a clear description or presentation, short series of simple phrases, maybe a bit more than that. So it's somewhere around the B1. So this is just showing you in one overall oral production how we would kind of find where the student is. Okay. Now, this is the issue. And this is from Brian North. He's one of the experts. He has written books about the CEFR, which I have here. He says, and it's a very good point, it is all too common to hear the opinion expressed that someone cannot possibly be B2 if their pronunciation or their ability to develop an argument is not B2. This is simply inaccurate. They may well be B2, but with poor pronunciation. It is impossible, practically, for us to be one level in everything. Our reception skills, we learn, as babies, we understand before we can speak. And the same with second language, acquisition. We understand so much more than we can produce as we're learning. You know yourself as teachers, it probably happened to you too, frustrating when in a moment you want to say something and the right words don't come. Our pronunciation, my writing, for example, my grammar in writing is not great in German, but my comprehension is much better. So we have shades of difference. It is impossible for us to be exactly at the same point in every single skill at the same time. And this is something we have to remember as teachers. We can have students who are just great at comprehension. They understand everything. They're great at vocab. Yet when it comes to producing the language, communicating with the language, they maybe have difficulties. So we have to accept that that's part of it, and that's part of the learning. So we have one more, and then I'm coming to an end. I hope I'm not in trouble. We have one more here, the same task.
Alice, as to your As to your desire to share the flat with me, I was thinking about it. Look, I'd rather you find another place to live because, as you know, I have big family and my relatives often come to visit me, so they need extra place in my flat to live with me. Also, my aunt asked me to welcome her niece for her external examination and while she is taking her practice in Calgary, so it might be busy. So if you want, I can help you and we can look for a nice flat or a room to share with someone else near me, so we can meet and spend a lot of time together.
Very good. So this is a totally different speaker. So you can think, I typed it all up there and I tried to kind of, this isn't the accurate, this is my kind of interpretation to show you that while she's very fluent and her ideas are very clear, she loses her way there in the middle. Pronunciation, sometimes she pauses, she hesitates, but she corrects herself. There's a lot going on in this short little recording. But you can see some very positive things too. As to your desire to share the flat with me, so she's referring to the previous point, so the friend's request. I was thinking about it, and then she uses this soft language. I'd rather you find another place to live. She gives her, because as you know, I have the big family, and she's giving her reasons here. And giving more and more reasons that more people might come. It might be busy, but she offers a solution. She offers a suggestion that she will help the friend find a place, a nice flat or whatever. And also she adds the point, let's look for one near me so we can meet often and spend time together. Now, of course, there are errors, and you can hear this person's native language influence as well. She sometimes forgets her articles. However, if we just look here at grammatical accuracy, we would say it is either, I would put it up here at a B2 plus or a C1 minus, somewhere around here. Good grammatical control, occasional slips or non-systematic errors, minor flaws in sentence structure. They're rare and can often be corrected in retrospect. So we heard her do that in that short text. We already heard she's able to correct herself. C1 consistently maintains a high degree of grammatical accuracy. Errors are rare, difficult to spot. I'd say maybe a B2 plus C1, just in this descriptor now, of course, not her overall, but just in her grammatical accuracy. We can see where she is. Her overall phonological control is about C1. A wide range of phonological features in the target language with sufficient control to ensure intelligibility throughout. Yeah, she was very clear, even though sometimes she ran words on together, but it was still very clear what she was saying. Okay, so they were my two examples just to show you from the planning, from the assessment. As teachers, we can use this ourselves. I mean, the CEFR is free for all on the Council of Europe website. And this is what I think the most important thing is. The purpose of the descriptions is to bring transparency to the aims pursued in teaching and certification. The CEFR, as I said, it's free. It's a framework, a tool that was made for all of us to use, teachers and publishers and test providers, etc. And students can use it themselves. You can use it with your students, and it brings transparency to what we're talking about. It makes it clear what is a B2, what is a C1. It guarantees fairness and comparability in language testing. Okay, that is me done. I hope that some of this information has been helpful. I know it's very short. I could go on forever, but I hope it has inspired you to maybe take a look at the CEFR yourself. And, you can use it in your planning. You can use it with your students and to make the whole language learning and testing process more transparent. Okay, thanks very much. That's me finally finished. Over to you, Beauty.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura, for that clear and practical overview for the CEFR. Martin this time. Next, we turn to the technology behind the task. Martin is the head of assessment at Clarity, and he will take us through how AI works in assessment and how DST AI scoring system work. So Martin, the screen is yours.
Great, thank you very much, Puyi, and good morning from London for me, and obviously good afternoon to everybody in Taiwan. So Laura's talked very clearly about how we can use CEFR framework to help us evaluate a student's speaking ability. And what I want to do in my part of the talk is to see how AI can help us do this in an automated way. So we looked at Laura looked at all of the the descriptors and the criteria that a marker would need to look at to assess that particular task. And so it's worth thinking about this from if we're training human markers, then obviously we have to train people up for each of the tasks in a test. They have to understand all of the criteria for that task, and there'll be a different range of descriptors that they have to understand. And then they have to evaluate all of those criteria when they listen to the response from the student. And obviously that's one marker. Part of the really important part of the training is that we can make sure that all of the markers are not only accurate in themselves, but they're consistent. So you can't just mark one response on your own. You have to mark a number of responses to start to establish your own accuracy. Then you have to compare your own marking with other markers to make sure you're doing this in a consistent way. It's a very skilled job, and it's a time-consuming job to train people up. So that's one thing that we have to do with human markers. So the question is, how do we do this with a machine? And I put 4 aspects onto the screen here, and I'm going to talk about each of those in turn. So the first one here is speech recognition, and I mean, I think I put those brand names up there, which I think people will be familiar with. That's what I mean by speech recognition. It's when you talk to a machine, how does it actually recognize what you've said and turn it into something that the machine can then understand? Laura showed kind of the transcripts that she'd produced. The machine has to be able to do that same thing. And interestingly, there's research that talks about how accurate are speech recognition systems. And if I say that the kind of maybe the average is a sort of 90% accuracy, maybe do you think that's good or bad? I mean, I'm not sure. It maybe doesn't sound fantastic. But then you actually do the same research with humans, and you find that their level of accuracy is not really any greater the first time they listen to, particularly to non-native speakers. Actually, there's quite a lot that you might find difficult to capture yourself as a human, and it's the same for a system. But the key thing is that you train your system on non-native speakers so that the system is aware of the different range of accents that it's likely to encounter. So, accents, obviously, they could be from Taiwan or from Southeast Asia. They could be from Latin America. They could be from the Middle East. So a whole range of people and the way that they pronounce English, so the machine can recognize the system. And the level of accuracy then will be high if it's been trained on the right kind of data. So linguistic features, which the machine has to be trained on, these are very familiar to us. This is obviously what we'd expect to be training either a machine or a human on. So pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, grammar. Laura showed us some of the descriptors from CEFR. The machine has to go about this in a way which it can have some objective measures that can assign a numeric value to. So, and in a system like this, there will be not simply one measure for each of these 4 areas. Our system will have over 50, what I might call sort of micro measures. So there are several measures for each of these different areas. I mean, obviously for near pronunciation, I can say, for example, you need a measure that compares how accurate is the student's ability to produce a particular phoneme, and that'll be measured against an acoustic model and be given a score, if you like, how close is the student's pronunciation to that acoustic model, and that score could be 76%, it could be 55%. Sorry, I've got a little bit of echo on the line. I don't know if that's affecting other people. I'll keep going. So I said that there are over 50 features that are used by the machine. So here is just some of the features that we could use. This is taken from an article about automated speech machines in general. You can see that, for example, with fluency, here are 5 features at the top, and these include things, for example, duration of silences. So if a candidate has long silences, that will be measured, and that can be an indication of the competence of that speaker. You'd also want to be measuring, for example, the ratio of how long a student is silent against how long they're actually producing speech. So those 2 points is you can have occasional silences, and that would be fine for a competent speaker. But if there are too many silences compared with the amount of time that somebody is speaking, what our kind of research shows is that is a good indicator of somebody's level. And as I say, this is just a snapshot of some of the micro features that we measure. There are over 50 for the whole program. So then you have all of these micro scores that have been created for those micro features. But obviously what we have to do then is to say, how does that actually equate to a CFR level? I mean, having a figure that says that somebody can speak at a certain rate with a certain number of words per minute, that doesn't tell us actually what level they're at. And this is where really, this is one of the big advantages of AI, that we have fed into this system 5,000 sample responses, and these responses have been marked initially by 2 or 3 expert trained markers. So that gives us a benchmark. So we know that the scores that have been assigned to those 5,000 samples are accurate and reliable. Then we can feed those into the AI, and it can analyze those samples, knowing what the appropriate CFR score is, and also having all of the micro scores that I've just talked about for the features related to pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, and grammar. And then it can map the machine scores to the human scores and come up with an algorithm that effectively says that if you have this score with a combination of all of the features, that would map to either an A2 or a B1 or a B2. And because you have such a large number of samples, well, that phrase big data is often used, then it makes it highly reliable, that the correlation between those scores and the expert markers means that we can rely on that. I mean, if you compare, if we were training a human marker, I mean, if the human marker was trained on maybe 30 responses, that would be probably quite standard. And they're looking at, as Laura showed, they're looking at a number of different descriptors, a number of different features. But even that's as much as a human can keep in their mind. Maybe that relatively small sample. Whereas a machine, we can give it these 5,000 samples. We can give it 50+ micro features, and it can keep all of that in its virtual head, if you like, and process it all at the same time. And that is what really gives us the opportunity to produce an accurate and reliable score. And then task achievement, which is, again, one of the things that Laura looked at quite closely, is that it's not just about linguistic features. We also want to know whether the student can actually communicate in a range of different real life or realistic scenarios. So that's why I put it at the top there. What we want the test to measure. We want the test to measure, yes, we want to measure their ability to speak fluently and accurately, but we also want to make sure that they can communicate. And that's why we have task achievement as one of the factors that the AI is measuring. And actually, this is an area where AI really recently has made a big breakthrough. If you like, I was going to say, in an old style automated test, what I mean by that is something that goes back 2 or 3 years, then for a speaking test, we'd have perhaps had people reading out a sentence so that the machine could compare what the person read against a pre-prepared model. Whereas now, with this kind of AI breakthroughs we've all seen in the last 2 or 3 years, you can have AI assessing spontaneous speech. It doesn't have to be pre-prepared for the particular words it's going to hear. And we can write prompts to the AI to say, this is the task, these are the different aspects of the task, and we want you, AI, to assess whether the student has completed this task and therefore whether they can actually communicate with what they're saying. So it's not just enough to be able to speak fluently. We want to actually see, can you use the language to perform a task? And it's great now the AI can actually give us a view on that. And if somebody speaks completely off topic and doesn't answer the task, then the AI will detect that and mark it down accordingly. So this is the question, I guess, that people really want to know is the machine as reliable as a human marker? Can you trust the score that you get from an automated speaking test? But then I've also put the question out, how reliable are humans? I mean, we have to be aware that no two humans will give identical marks every time to the responses they listen to, however well trained they are. And test providers put a lot of effort into evaluating the inter-rater reliability. What I mean by that is you have to look at what is the level of variance between the marks that the human markers give. And obviously, for a test to be reliable, we need to make sure that the markers are not varying too far in their marks. As I say, they will never be 100% the same, but we obviously need to make sure that if there are markers that are going way above or way below, that those marks are detected and will then have to be excluded, and maybe even that particular marker would not be relied upon. So actually, we need to be, first of all, aware that humans are not totally reliable. But for our test, so when we were developing the test and pre-testing it, we conducted the same kind of exercise with the AI. So we included some human markers, and then we also added the AI marker in as another marker to be assessed. So we looked at the inter-rater reliability of the AI marking alongside some expert human markers, people who've been doing this kind of thing for many years. And the good news is that you really couldn't tell a difference between the AI and the other markers in the sense that it didn't stand out. There was no obvious difference in the range of its marking. So if I show you, I'm not expecting you to be able to absorb this or to see all the detail immediately, but really the main point is that the profile of the AI marker is no different really from the profile of the human markers. There is variation in all. There is actually a very good level of accuracy amongst all of them. This 0.1 is the ideal. 1 would be perfect correspondence. Anything that is below or above 0.85 is very good level of accuracy. So we find that the human markers here, they have a good level of accuracy and reliability. And the same for the AI. If I took away the headings that said which was AI and which was humans, you wouldn't be able to say, oh, that's the AI because its marks stand out from the other human markers. So that's really important that we've developed a test where you can rely on the AI marker at the same level of accuracy as a human marker. But I just want to end by saying, so does that mean that this test is the same as a test that's been conducted by a human? And I would say, no, not entirely. There are some important differences. And one interesting one is in the area of objectivity, that, you know, the machine in the end is a machine, which means that it is totally objective. For example, and it doesn't get tired, it doesn't get distracted, which humans do. It can keep all of those micro features in its virtual head at the same time. It will assess them in exactly the same way every time. You know that it will be totally consistent. And even one interesting thing is it's not affected by any kind of unconscious bias. So one of the things that we've found, for example, is that there's a halo effect, which people may be familiar with. So if you start listening to a response and somebody in the very first question that they answered, they are very fluent, they're doing very well, then you immediately think, oh yeah, I know where this candidate's coming from, I've located them at this point. You then have to, it's actually harder for a human mentally to adjust if over the course of the test that candidate doesn't keep up the same level. The machine evaluates exactly what is said by the candidate. It has no biases. So if the candidate subsequently starts to do worse or subsequently starts to do better, the machine will evaluate it exactly in that way. And just briefly, certainly we found that native speakers can be caught out by this is the feeling that, well, I'm a native speaker, so once I start speaking, I don't really need to prepare. You know, my accent will be recognized, my fluency will be recognized, so that's all good. But actually, if that speaker then doesn't use high-level vocabulary, if they don't really focus on the task and answer it properly, then the machine will absolutely pick that up. It will do you no favors. It will not say, oh yes, okay, so I recognize this person's is a native speaker, so yeah, they must be good. The machine evaluates exactly what it hears, and that actually is completely fair. And then just a couple more things here. The test taker experience. Again, I think there's an assumption that people will always prefer to work with a human. But again, there's been quite a lot of research which suggests not that people prefer to work with not that all people prefer to work with a machine, but actually some people prefer one style and some people prefer another. There are people who actually feel more nervous when interacting with another teacher, a kind of authority figure, if you like, and actually like the anonymity of interacting with a test. So it suits some people to have an automated test. And really just to wind up here, and of course, you know, the real advantage for an automated test, the thing that it can do that human marking, a human-based test can't do, are these things here. The design of the test. We provide a test which has been, you know, created by experts. If you had to create your own test, you can do it, but it takes a long time, and you have to go through all those processes, as Laura was showing, of creating tasks that align to all the descriptors to make sure that it actually is going to measure what you want it to measure. As I say, the bottom one there, you're going to have to train your markers, you're going to have to monitor what they do. Practicality, you're going to have to find time to conduct one-to-one interviews with your students. All of those are things that an automated speaking test can make so much simpler. It makes it's much easier to administer. You get a test which is actually a high quality test without you having to spend lots and lots of your own time to try and create something of that quality. So that is the end of my talk about the AI test, and Pui can maybe tell us and show us more about dynamic speaking test itself.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Thank you. And Laura explains to you about the foundation of DST, that is the CEFR speaking descriptor, right? And then Martin told you more about how AI work behind the test, okay? But you may wonder, actually, what is this test about, right? And then we'll move on to sharing section and the Q&A. So why DST? Okay, DST was developed with a very, very clear goal to provide a holistic, fast, accurate assessment in 50 minutes for learners speaking English, especially when time and preparation is limited. It's perfect for use in classroom, place students at the right CEFR level, like tracking their progress throughout the terms or assessing overall speaking proficiency at the end of the course. So what makes DST unique? DST isn't tied to a narrow set of contexts. Instead, it evaluates learner ability to function across a variety of real-world scenarios. This includes academic, professional, social, and everyday communication. It's not about memorizing phrases. It's about communicative competence, how well someone can express their idea, respond to situation, and switch between formal and informal style, depending on the context. So as you know, learn from Laura, at the heart of DST is a task-based communicative approach, closely aligned with CEFR. Each task targets specific CEFR level from A1 to C2 and reflect a range of domains and registry, from formal personal conversation to formal professional exchange. Okay, here's a quick snapshots you can see of the task design. From task 1, describing routines and preferences, 2, drawing conclusions from clues, 3, advising and reporting, 4, disagreeing, suggesting alternative, 5, summarizing 2 viewpoints, building an argument. Number 6, finally, which personally I find it's the most challenging and interesting one, interpreting creative works and presenting ideas. So each one is designed to assess language in use, but not in isolation, okay? So Martin tell you that DST use AI technology to evaluate speaking response, but with a very human-centered design. The system only evaluate what is explicitly spoken. As Martin mentioned to you, there's no assumption based on the accents, the gender, or who you are, or whether you're a native speaker or not, or other factors. Okay, this makes it very inclusive and bias-free assessment. So response score against these 5 criteria: pronunciation, so it's about clarity and intelligibility; fluency, natural speak flow, minimal hesitation; grammar, accuracy and appropriateness; vocabulary, range, and also the relevancy; task achievement. So it's like really rate whether the appropriate of response to the task, okay? Which is actually I think it's always the most challenging one to most of the test takers. Okay, so the result. The result is reported as CEFR level from A1 to C2, and there also is a relative numeric score from 1 to 120. So if you have some learner at the same CEFR level, you can also know where they are at different points within one CEFR level. Okay. And you can also see there is a relative spider graph here. It can be shown on the certificate here. Okay, so you know the strength and weaknesses among these like sub-skills for each test takers, okay? So to conclude, to wrap up, here's why DST matters to us as educators. It's grounded in communicative language teaching. It's aligned with CEFR level. It's task-based, not theoretical. It's fast, reliable, and fair. And most importantly, it reflects how learners really use English in the world. Okay, so if you are looking for a speaking test that works with your curriculum, I highly recommend you to explore it further. So you can check out more in this website, dynamicspeakingtest.com, and understand more. If you want to understand more or get a free trial, you can contact our sole distributor in Taiwan, Wenhao Company, Kimmer. She is in the hall with me, and her email is here, info@wenhao.com. So it's now come to the last sections of today. It's always very valuable to hear from teachers on the ground, and we are thrilled to have 3 teachers, experienced teachers, here with us today to share their experience of using DPT with their students. I would like to please welcome me to to have the 3 teachers with me. Professor Tang from Ming Chuan University. She's on the 4th on the hall today. So would you please move to the front desk here? Okay, and then online we got Professor Chow from Wing Chao Erskine University of Languages, and also Professor Chui from Fengjia Universities. Okay, so they are come here to share their practical tips for implementing the tests, more about the test preparation strategy and their reflections on how DST work with the students. Okay, so maybe let's start with something, questions about student engagement and experience. So the students seem motivated or engaged during the test. How did they respond to the test format? Do they find it interesting, stressful, or do they like it? How do they think? So shall we start with you because you're next to me, Laura?
Hello, everyone. Okay, so I would like to share I think it's more like the responses and the reaction from student. It's more about like, they kind of like want to try, and then because they don't know their level, they only like doing like the reading and listening test before, and only 4 students have taken like a speaking test before, either like kind of like a TOEIC speaking or maybe like IELTS or TOEFL. Yeah. So, and I gave them like the file for them to see, I mean, like the structure, but then most of them, they just didn't see the file at all because they want to try it spontaneously. I think it's quite like challenging for them because they want to know their level. So for the preparation, like only 2 students like check the question, and then they only prepare for the self-introduction part. Yeah, so basically most of them, they didn't do any preparation at all because they want to try the current level. And I kind of like, I encourage them to do like that because it must be like spontaneous to do, to know their actual level. And it will be better to know their level. And the result, basically the result is like most of them, I have like 18 students, and then only 2 students got like below expectation. What is below expectation here is not about like the result, like below what they should get, but it's more about what it's below the usual performances. Because I always have like a one-on-one speaking with them, and then also like speaking with partner with them. So I have like several speaking exercises. So it's like compared to that performances, 2 students got below the expectation. And then the reasons mainly because they're not feeling comfortable to talk to the computer.
I see.
So they prefer to talk to the real person. Yeah, but for the other students, they just feel okay because talk to the computer, they feel like get less nervous. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
That's what I
Thank
got from
you.
it.
Thank you, Lina. So how about you? What do you think about Mr. Professor Trey? Do you want to share what your student find about the test?
Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me to this very interesting session. And in order to share my experience using DST in my class, let me first of all share the screen with everybody here. So
Okay.
can you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, right. Let me quickly show you something that we did here at Fengjia. And before I start, I actually want to share some photos taken on the day when we did the simulation test. Okay. So these are the 2 students. Actually, we did the simulation test for 2 days. For the very first day, we got 10 students. For the second day, we got 8. But no matter what, as you can see from the screen, these 2 students were taking the test. And obviously, they are using different kinds of devices. On the right, you see a girl, and she was using the mobile phone directly to take the test. On your left, he was not checking the answer on the mobile phone while he was doing the test on the iPad, because when he was about to do the test, we found some problem with the phone. So that's the reason why he turned to the iPad to complete the test. But no matter what, these 2 photos show you that if you want to use DST in your own class, actually students can bring their own different kinds of devices in order to complete the test. It's not like the traditional speaking test. They don't need to have the laptop in the classroom or something like that. They can simply use their own devices to complete the test. So I think this is one of the benefits for everybody here in this room. It's not going to be a traditional way of doing the test, all right? And this is also another photo. As you can see, these students were in a smaller classroom where they took the random seats in order to complete the test. And this is a photo for another group of students who were in the same room while they were doing the test. So as you can see, just as I said, I think DST is now very convenient for everybody, for any kind of environment. So you don't need to have a computer room in order to complete the test. It can be anywhere, even in your own room, to do the test. So if you have some problems finding a place to complete a test like this, actually DST can solve the problem like that. Okay, so this is the photos that I want to show you. So who are these students? Actually, they are the English major students. They come from my department, and they come from the Fengshan University. We have 4 seniors, 7 juniors, 5 sophomores, and 2 freshmen. The reason I got these students to do the simulation test is because I want to see how accessible this kind of test for all of them. Okay, so that's the reason why we have students from different years of the university. So afterwards, after they completed the test, I actually gave them a questionnaire. So in this questionnaire, we have 2 sets of questions. We have Likert scale questions for 10, and we also have 2 short answer questions. Okay, so let me quickly go through these questions. For the Likert scale questions, the first one is the testing method was easy to learn. The second one is the testing process was simple and clear. The third one is each question had clear instructions or explanations. The fourth one is the preparation time for each question was sufficient. The fifth one, the response time for each question was sufficient. The sixth one, the intervals between each question were appropriate. The seventh one, the level of difficulty for each question was progressive, and none were too easy or too difficult. And then the test content was relevant to my daily life. This is something that was mentioned by Pei. Okay, and also the speaking ability tested reflected the skills I actually use in daily life. And the very last one is, after test, I better understood which aspects of my speaking ability I need to improve, something like this. And the 2 short answer questions were, after test, what will you do to improve your English speaking ability? The second one is, will you recommend your fellow students, friends, or relatives to take this test, and why? And as you can see, some of them said yes, and they said, I should not be the only one to take the test. I should include everyone in the room to take the test. Oh my God. Okay, but no matter what, let me show you the quick results of all these answers. So for their own responses, actually 97% of the responses are either strongly agree or agree. 2 questions in exception. Okay, for question 4, the preparation time for each question was sufficient. One said neutral, the other one said strongly disagree. And I actually talked to the student who ticked strongly disagree and asked him why he chose this one. And he said, this is my very first time to take an exam like this, so I did not know where I should look at this information. For example, one of the questions is about giving us a calendar, and then we need to describe the features or the things that we can see from there. And he was a little bit too busy finding out the features that he could talk about. So he believed that this kind of question did not give him sufficient preparation time for this for a question like this. Okay, and another one is about the question 5. The response time for each question was sufficient. 3 said neutral, 2 disagree with it. And the reason for them to choose these answers is because they said the question itself actually contains a lot of information they want to cover. So they could not decide what kind of things should be included. So that's the reason why they did not have enough time to answer all the things they can find in these questions. So these are 2 exceptions, but I think this is somehow related to whether they are used to this kind of question or not. So I think that can be better improved if in the future they can have some simulation tests more so that they will know what they can do. Okay. So the short answer question, we have some short answer questions, and then the responses are like, they need to do the shadowing. And they need to listen to the TED Talks so that they will know what kind of things that they can answer. And also, one of the students actually said he could improve his speaking organization skills because sometimes he got a lot of ideas, but he did not know how to put these ideas in an organized way in order to give a very logical answer. And some said we need to speak with friends in English more. Okay, so these are the answers we got for the first short answer question. And for the second one, yes, most of them said yes to this. There's only one student who said no, and he is actually the only one who encountered the technical issue during the process. We did not know why this happened, but during the process, I think it was about question 3, everything got stuck and we could not return to the very first stage. So that's the reason why he had to stop to take the exam, to take the test. So that's the reason why he said, no, I hope that this can be improved so that I will be willing to take the test. Okay, so these are the answers from my students. So my conclusion is, I think this is a very good, test system because it's very easy to use for students and it's even very easy for teachers to prepare. We don't need to look for a very specific or a very special classroom in order to do this. It can be anywhere in the classroom, okay? And also the student said that all the questions reflect the real life scenario. So afterwards, they will know what kind of things they need to learn, the vocab or the grammar, and they can also use these things in their own daily life. And the most important thing is they think it's actually very fun and interesting. For example, for the very last question is about a picture. And they need to explain what kind of messages that the artist tried to convey through that kind of picture. So they think it's kind of critical thinking thing, and it's really challenging for them to take a question like this. Okay, and if that's the case, then that's for the students' parts. But what can DST do for teachers and universities? I think as educators or even as administrative staff from the university, this is a question that concerns us the most, all right? Let me use my own, because I did the test as well. Let me use my own reports as a way to show you what kind of thing that we can do with it, okay? So as you can see on your left-hand side, we will have a descriptive feedback. So you can see clearly what kind of things, what kind of overall response, pronunciation, fluency, vocab, grammar, or even the text achievement that we can find in each student. So if you try to analyze or if you try to assign other things for students to do, these are the things that you can help. You can find. This is a place where you can find information. And for each question, you will have the script and you will see what kind of things. For example, this is question 5, and you can see how you are evaluated for pronunciation, fluency, vocab, grammar, and test achievement. So as a teacher, if you have information like this, then you will know what kind of things that this student should pay attention to in particular. So I think all these are very useful information for educators as well as for the universities. So that's the reason why I think DST is going to be very, very powerful and very useful in any kind of scenario. So this is basically my sharing, and I want to say thank you for listening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that, Professor Chen. I think you answered all the questions I prepared in your PowerPoint. Yeah, but we are like slightly delayed right now. We are at 4:44. But we got Professor Chow, who hasn't got a chance to share with me and with us. And also, I also later want Martin and Laura to give some feedback on about what the students said about not enough preparation time or answer time. Okay, so maybe we'll let Professor Chow to speak first, to say something first. Okay,
Okay,
thank
I
you.
will make it short. Well, I just quickly share about why I use the DST. Well, I'm not teaching the English lesson. I'm not using it for English, but I'm actually doing a project and focusing on improving students' English oral skills. So I do need the result to compare before the intervention and after. So I use DST for my pre-test and post-test. And why I choose DPT, because they actually offer only oral tests. So I think that's actually perfect to my the project. Okay, and it's also very easy for students to use, and it only took about 15 minutes. So I can just use it in my class, and so it didn't really occupy too much of my lesson times. And so I think it's very easy for me to do, and students can see the result right away, and I can also get students' result. So it's also very easy for me to collect all the results and students' performance. Yeah. So I will actually have the post-test maybe like in June again, and we'll see how much I still improve. So that's actually basically why I use it. And well, I didn't really prepare my student because that's not like English lesson per se. So I just told them like the procedure of how you are going to use them, what kind of like the question you may kind of encounter, and like don't forget to scroll down, like if you like the interface only show one side. So it's just some like test information. So that's all. Yeah. So basically it's like that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Chow, for your sharing. So Martin and Laura, can you, do you have any feedback so far after listening to? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, Lynn also want to quickly share what she find. Just a moment.
Okay, so everyone just quickly to like share my part here. So here's like what I think like Martin already explained about this earlier, and then Pei also explained about this. So as for my student, I get like 12 Taiwanese and then 6 foreign students. Yeah, and then it's also like freshman, junior, and senior students. And then I think like the important thing is, well, here's like the overall result from all of them. So but most of them like get like a A2 level. And then here's like the overall result, like A1, there are 4 students, A2 11, B1 2, and then B2 1 students out of like the 18 students. Yeah. And then here by the indicators from pronunciation, fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and text achievement, here we can see like for the pronunciation, most of them like get like A2 to B1 level, and then fluency also. And then for the vocabulary, an A2 level, and then for the grammars B1, and then for the test achievement is they need more improvement in this part. So for the test achievement, most of them get like A, below A1, and then A1 like non-students. Yeah, so only 3 students get A2 for the test achievement. And then here's like the by parts, like part 1 to part 6. So here's like a part 1, most of them like A2 to B1, and then part 2, A1 to A2. Part 3, A1. So this is like the challenging part. I think the challenge for all students like part 3 to part 5. Yeah, for my students in Ming Chuan, like the challenging part is part 3 to part 5. Part 6, well, although it's kind of like more about like creative thinking, but they feel when they see a picture, they can like explore their ideas more, and they can explore their imagination more. So for my students, the most part that need improvement is like part 3 to part 5. Okay. And then here's like the student feedback. So I did like questionnaire. Well, it's quite similar with Professor Chen from Fengchai University. It's quite similar. And then the similarity is also like the time to prepare. So the time to prepare, most of them like feel it's not enough. Yeah. And then here I also check like all the transcription like from DST, and also check with this all this software, and then also myself. So I get like 6 including DST, and then they all like the reliability like more than 95%. Yeah, so the transcription accuracy is like more than 95%. So I think that's why like DST is quite reliable. Okay. So here's earlier, so I get like 4 students who haven't taken like the speaking proficiency test before, and they got actually like exactly like the same result as DST. Yeah, so this one. And then including the 4 students, the other 12 students also have like a similar result if it's like human grade. So I graded like all of the recording by myself as well. Yeah. And earlier, as I mentioned, only like 2 students below expectation, but mostly because they just not feel comfortable talking to a computer. They feel more comfortable to talk to real people. So, but for the different part is on like, the different part is only like here. So for the first student here, for part 3, DST is like A1, but well, when I graded by myself, I only can grade like with A, like below A1, because I think the students couldn't express anything about it. Yeah, so he only talked about like, okay, so there's a problem with the product, that's all. Yeah. And then the other one is quite similar. So DST, and then I graded by myself, is quite similar result. The other one is quite different, is this one. So for the second students, talking about themselves, like the DST like graded like B1. But when I grade by myself, I only can grade like A2 plus maybe, because there's some redundant information. So instead of redundant information, he can talk more about the other part. other aspect, for example, like maybe like hobbies or you know, like family or anything. Because in this part, he only like mentioned what name and then study in what university and then graduated from high school and then major. That's all. And he keep repeating like he graduated from high school in Taichung and Taichung in middle Taichung. It kind of like, yeah, okay. And then the last part is like this, the part 4, developing an argument. So it's also like DSC like A1, but for me it's like below A1, like a little bit less than A1. Yeah. So overall, basically, I think it's like for these 18 students, the result from DSC and then the transcription and then also like my you know, my self-evaluation for them is quite very similar. So I think that's why like overall like DSC is quite like very high reliability and also like accuracy. Here's like the suggestion for student. So like more time to prepare and to respond. And then the interface for each part. So like I mentioned, like on the calendar part and then also like the other part, they can like have to flip the pages.
Okay.
Yeah. So make it into one page into instead of several pages, it would be better.
Okay.
Oh, and the last part, the next button to save the answer, the position is like very low. So they kind of like miss that part and then they can like wait for the time. So they don't know they have to scroll down. Yeah.
I guess
So
yeah,
make it
better
to,
instruction
yeah.
or before the test would
Mm.
be used
And
in
here's kind of like the conclusion, like
Yeah.
also like the feedback
Cool.
from students.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Nila. Thank you, Nila, for like your sharing. So, okay, timing. We are like at 4:43 right now. And so I think it's good to have Laura and Martin to respond to just what 3 professors say. And then what I find from the chat Q&A, there is one question. If I don't mean to like ask everyone to stay, but if you want, I think we can have that like answer that one questions and also have Laura and Martin to give some feedback so far. And if you really have more questions want to ask, please feel free to add it to the Q&A. Okay. I see someone raise their hands, but I will go to you very soon. Okay. So Martin and Maura, can you like maybe start with Martin? Do you want to start first?
I think it's really fascinating to hear the responses of 3 people who actually used the test and so encouraging because I think, you know, I think it's probably what we wanted to hear. You know, that the students find this interesting, that you as teachers think that they're actually testing real life skills. And obviously, you know, you've spent you put a lot of effort into to test the reliability of the system and also the accuracy of it. And you know, to have done that and to feel confident that what the machine is producing is in line with what you expect as well. You know, that's really encouraging for us in developing this test. You know, I think it's an interesting point about, you know, the familiarization with the type of questions. And I think that's something that we've been talking about a little bit. And we're looking at a kind of modification of the test, which means that there will be a couple of practice questions at the start. So it won't be that kind of optional thing, as you say, where you want the students to do it and you encourage the students to do it, but they just get stuck into the test. We'll incorporate this into the test itself so that they will have a couple of practice questions, get familiar with the interface, get familiar with the how to answer this type of question, and hopefully that will help them feel more comfortable with it. But you know, great suggestions there, which we will go away and talk about. Laura?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think the presentations are fantastic and so useful to us to help us, you know, really understand how people feel about it. We've, of course, done piloting ourselves and taken that feedback into account and worked, as Martin said, with teams of experts and got them to test it. But really, you don't know anything until you actually put it into the field and try it out with real people. So it's really useful. And all of this feedback will be used and discussed and integrated into our discussions behind the scenes when we talk about, you know, how we can develop the test further. I think that with regards familiarization to, I think the biggest worry we had was that, and I think some people have kind of touched on it, that students would not be kind of familiar with task-oriented tasks, you know, that However, I believe that this is really, because of the CEFR again, I really believe that this is becoming more and more as an essential part of course books that we use. You know, our learning materials from the different publishers around the world are beginning to introduce more and more like opinion tasks and present an argument and all of these things. And so I think that the students are definitely more aware. I was a bit worried about it, but they're definitely better at this than I thought. Yeah, but this is something that teachers can practice more in their lessons, I guess, if they know the students are doing that. Yeah, and otherwise, I find it really interesting to see how that students find the test fun, because that is the goal. Language learning should be motivating, and it shouldn't really, you know, demotivate them and make them want to give up. So the goal of the test was to try and be colorful and fun and a little bit different, with like all variety, to give a bit of an enjoyable experience. So thank you for all your hard work in gathering this feedback. I think it's fantastic.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Martin. And thank you, three professors, for sharing your experience of using the STE. And actually, I really feel that that is one thing that I really like about our test, because the test is named like Dynamic English Test, whether it's speaking test or the placement test. Actually, what you can see here is we got the head of assessment here, and also the developer, one of our developer here. They are willing to listen to your opinion, okay? That is why we are having, as Martin mentioned, we are having another version coming up. We are thinking the test is still great. We think it's still great, but we hear you. We can hear you that, okay, preparation time issue, or okay, the student is having problem or prepare them. Okay, then we make it into our test. Okay, I guess like as I said, the test is around 15 minutes. So I think after adding that preparation times, it will like still under 20 minutes. So which is still a very, very quick and reliable test. Okay, so I can see, okay, two questions here. Okay, so let maybe start with the one that Howard. As a former IELTS examiner, I'm curious what effect you think AI will have on human examiner in the future and the English industry in general. No, I'm not. Okay, so Laura, Martin, what do you think? Okay, it's more about they still think AI, the impact with the human examiner. Any idea?
I could just jump in briefly, and I think, you know, that so I've seen when piloting this test, we got lots of examiners in to, they were listening, we were piloting the test by using the results of many test takers with the system, and then we gave the same audios, as some of you did, we give the same audios to these exam experts, test experts here from all around the world, and we compared, and they were involved in seeing what the system gave, and many of them came into this whole day of benchmarking really skeptical about AI, and they were really against it, and they were like, oh, you know. And I think at the end, it was so interesting to see that they were really surprised about how useful it was, and their attitudes changed. They saw it initially as a threat and something they didn't believe, they were skeptical about. And at the end of the day, they were really interested in seeing how we can use it as a tool, because it won't replace us, as someone said originally. I think Dr. Ashley said, you know, it shouldn't replace the teachers. However, it will become a more common, a more commonly used tool in everything we do. You know, it's happening. The young people are using it already. Inevitably, we have to come to terms with that. So I think that I was just saying basically the impact it would have on English testing in general. I think that we will see it as another tool. I don't think it'll replace us, but the creativity still comes from the humans. But this assessment tool will be more commonplace for us all. So I think there'll be hesitancy at the beginning, but I think eventually we will see it like a typewriter or a calculator, something common. So sorry, Martin, over to you.
I mean, I think the only other thing I'd add is that I think it gives us an opportunity as well, doesn't it, to widen out the access to testing. I mean, if you can have reliable automated test, it gives an opportunity then that people in all kinds of situations can take tests. You don't have to be in a big city with access to a big institution. And while that may not be about to happen tomorrow for these kind of tests like IELTS, I think that's where it will go to, and I think that's got to be a good thing, that more people will have the opportunity to take these tests and to get the qualifications which can set them on their way in their lives.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Martin. Yeah, I think actually AI is not like affecting the exam, assessment as well. It's everyday life, right? Everything is with AI now, so it won't be questions for the examiner, I guess. So there are two more questions from Professor Gao. Could you please provide the reliability of the test? So actually we have, right, Laura and Martin, we have documents on our website, which I can share with you later. But do you want to briefly talk about this? And then another question he asks is, what is the cost of taking the test? And I only got my international pricing with me. It's like US $10 each. But I'm pretty sure Kima will give you a price in Taiwanese. But okay, so Martin, do you want to talk about the reliability of the test?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, we do have some documents on the website about this, and I mean that would be the best thing to refer you to see some of the facts and figures. I mean, simply to say that like all test providers, obviously statistical analysis of the performance of the test is really important to us, and so we've conducted these kind of tests, and the results are very much in line with what we would have for any kind of test, whether that's the kind of inter-rater reliability that we were talking about before, or measures of accuracy, where I was talking about having 5,000 samples benchmarked, and then having the scoring algorithm developed in line with that. Those are the kind of ways that we have developed the reliability, and monitoring and analyzing the reliability on an ongoing basis is all part of what we do.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Laura, and thank you, all three professors today. I think I don't see any more questions in the Q&A box. So I think that's bring us to the end of today's sections. On behalf of Chuan University, Character English, and the DST team, and all of our speakers today, thank you for joining us. I know there are lots of hiccups with the technical thing today. I'm sorry about that. We hope you leave today feeling more confident in assessing speaking and curious about how AI can support you on assessment. Also, don't forget to check out the website, dynamicspeakingtest.com, and for more resources, or you can contact with Kima, our show distributor here in Taiwan, for free trial or more understanding more about the test. So after when you close your browser, you should be able to see the post-event survey. So please fill in the form and let us know the feedback. If it doesn't happen, okay, I know supposingly Zoom will send you an email with that post-event survey, okay? If you really don't get it, let us know, info@characterenglish.com. I will email you personally, okay? So have a great afternoon and goodbye for now. Thank you very much for everyone. Thank you for participating. Thank you. Bye-bye.